to welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, I am Chloe, and today I'm going to be talking through all the books that I read in May. So I read 9 books, I believe. Let me just check. Yeah, 9 books. 4 were paperback and 1 was an audiobook, and the rest of the 4 were on my Kindle because I got my Kindle this month, which is crazy. So this is what it's currently looking like. I need to get myself some more stickers. I got a few the other day from work, but yeah. So let's go through and talk through all of the books that I read in May, because this is super exciting. I read quite a few books and quite a few different genres, I guess. So yeah, without further ado, the first book that I read this month was Ronin Rising by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the final book in the Grishaverse series, and this is my favourite. So you have Shadow and Bone, Siege and Storm, and then Ronin Rising, and this one was my favourite. It made me cry. I was literally reading it at the end and I was bawling. Can I remember what I was crying about now? I don't think so. I'm not going to say too much on this, but it is a whole fantasy series and there's still more books. So Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom are in this kind of Grishaverse, and there's 2 more books which I can't remember the name of, but they come after that anyway. But yeah, so read this month, and yeah, this I think for me made the Shadow and Bone series so much more worth it, because I just, yeah, it was good. It was very good. And I would really recommend it just for this book, to be honest, because it was emotional. It was a ride. I gave this 4.25 stars just because it wasn't my favourite book in the world, but I rated it higher than the last 2 books in the Shadow and Bone series because it had me in all the feels. So yeah. Also, I don't know about anyone else that's read this series. I kind of felt like it just felt a bit long. At the end of this, like, don't get me wrong, this book felt like it was needed. Like, I didn't feel like that by the end, but I think the whole second book I was just kind of like, oh, I feel like we could do without this. So yeah, in a way I felt like the series is a little bit long, but I did really enjoy this one, so I would recommend it. The second book that I read this month was The Goddess Chronicle. Now this book I wouldn't pick up typically, but I would highly recommend this because there was just something about the writing, about the story. It was so moving. And yeah, so basically it's about 2 sisters and they grow up on this island, and it's basically like yin and yang. So one sister is destined to become like the goddess of the land and like the goddess of the day type thing, and then one is then consequently becoming the goddess of like the night and death and all things dark like that, like the underworld. And the goddess of the night, that girl, she is not really happy with what happens and she doesn't really know what's going on. So one day she's really good friends with her sister, they're playing all the time, and then the next day her sister just basically gets taken away and she's not allowed to see her anymore and she's not allowed to communicate with her. And that's part of the rules because the 2 kind of worlds are not allowed to mix, which is just so crazy. And before she officially, I'm sure it's before she becomes the goddess of the night, she basically like runs away with this guy, and she gets pregnant. And then when she's in the house, she tells him and he's like, okay, let's like officially run away together, like let's do this, like let's go, like let's get on a boat, there's a boat here, let's go. And they do, and then something happens, and it's so huge, and I just can't. But basically she dies, and she's watching from death. And she goes to the land that's like where you have regrets, and everything is so interwoven. Like all of a sudden you meet all these other characters, and I was a bit like, I don't know what's going on, like why is this person here, like I don't understand, who is this? And then it all made sense, and it all clicked, and yeah, I just can't. It's so good, honestly. I don't even know, I can't really say anything else without giving it away. Probably saying that she dies is a spoiler. But yeah, please, if you are watching this, please read this, because it's so good. It is so good. And I will forever sing this book's praises, I think. I gave this 4.5 stars. To be honest, probably should have been higher because it was so good. I love it. Please read it. Please, please, please. And if anyone's read this, please message me, because we need to talk, because I just love this. It's so good. Anyway, 4-minute rant about that book over. The next book that I read was on Kindle, and this was before I actually had my Kindle, so I'd ordered it, and I like read this book like on my phone, or I think I had like an old Kindle that was like a gaming Kindle, not a reading Kindle, and so I read it on there a bit as well. And that book was Never Never by Colleen Hoover, and yeah, and Taryn Fisher. But I don't remember anything about this book, I'll be completely honest. I remember that it's called Never Never because they say never 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 to each other, and they want to like remember each other. It's a young adult. Hang on one second. I remember now. I just had to read like the synopsis. So basically, every 48 hours, I think, every so often, like every couple of days, these two people that are in a relationship and they're teenagers forget absolutely everything. They forget who they are, they forget where they live, they forget where they go to school, and it happens at the same time on like a set period of time after. And basically you don't realise this until like halfway through the book, and you basically just witness them like waking up for the first time and not knowing who they are, not knowing where they are. They were at school, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. I didn't really have any idea what was going to happen in this book because I did not read the back, and I kind of like that because I was completely kind of unaware of what was going on until I realised, and I felt like that was a good way to read it. But it was really, really, really interesting. I would recommend it for anyone kind of looking to read young adult. It's not my favourite book by her. I feel like it was just kind of average. I gave it 3.25 stars. To be honest, I'd probably lower that to 3 now, because yeah, like I said, I haven't really thought about it since then, like since I finished reading it. I'd say I'd probably give it 3 stars. But yeah, it was good, and the concept was really good, and I liked the whole idea of it, and yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, it just wasn't my favourite book that I've read. So anyway, moving on. The next book that I read was The 30-Day Money Cleanse, and I gave this book 3.75 stars. I'm not going to say a lot on this book because I haven't actually used any of the bits that I like listened to. I listened to this one on audiobook. It was good. It was good, but I just don't feel like I need it right now, because a lot of the stuff in the book, again, I think I said this like last month, was kind of, I guess, for more when you live on your own. I feel like that's when I'd use it most. Whereas now, I feel like I don't really need it as much, but it was really good. I would really recommend it because the way that it gets you to work through it is really good. Obviously, I listened to an audiobook. I feel like having the physical book would be so much better because you can physically work through like week 1 and stop it, whereas I was on like a time limit to listen to the whole book. So I had to kind of rush through it. But if I'd ever had time, I would have actually worked through it as well. And maybe I'll come back to this in a few years' time, who knows. But I do recommend it. The next book that I read, I gave 5 stars because I was blown away. I was blown away. And yeah. And it is His and Hers by Alice Feeney. Again, read this on Kindle. And honestly, I don't even know what to say about this book because it's basically saying that every side of the story has 2 perspectives. And it's a thriller. It was a psychological thriller. I was shocked at the end because I just didn't see it coming. I did not see it coming. I had no idea who had done what they'd done, but basically there is this woman who gets murdered, and Anna, who's the lead girl, goes down there, and it's where she used to live. It's where she's from, and yeah, she goes down there, and her ex-husband is like the lead investigator on the case. Anyway, it turns out the husband was having an affair with this woman, and like the woman that gets murdered, but the wife, like the ex-wife, was also somehow, like, she was linked to her as well, and it was someone that she knew. And it's basically, the whole story is him suspecting her, her suspecting him, and then other people trying to work out what the hell is going on. Neither of them reveal their connection to this woman, and in a way, like, he's trying to protect her because he keeps saying, like, the whole way through the book, like, I don't think it was her. And I was going, okay, so is it him? Is it her? Who the hell is it? And then basically another 2 people get murdered. And yeah, I don't know what's going on. And basically it's a whole, I was so shocked at the end when I found out who it was, and when I read it, and I was literally reading it, and I feel like at the end they do a bit where it's like from a few different perspectives, and then it reveals at the end who it actually was. And I was literally stood there, like, I was reading this with my mouth open, my jaw had dropped. I was like, what? I nearly threw my Kindle across the room. I literally could not stop speaking about this book for a good few days. Yeah, honestly, if you haven't read any of Alice Feeney's books, please get to know, because I can't. They are so good, and I feel like the twists are always unexpected. And I'd only read one of her books before now, and that was Daisy Darker, which I also really enjoyed that, but I actually think I preferred this one over that one. But I would still recommend Daisy Darker as well, so please get to know Alice Feeney if you don't already, because her thriller books are absolutely bloody amazing. Yeah, I honestly, that was on hands down my favourite book of the month, which is annoying because this was also really good, and I feel like this would have been my favourite of the month if I didn't read His and Hers. And I didn't expect to enjoy it that much. I have been into thrillers recently, and I'm never into thrillers. Like, I'm usually such a romance girly through and through, and I'm just like, oh, I'll pick up a thriller, this looks good. And they are good. Don't know what's going on, but my taste has changed. Anyway, the next book that I read this month was one that I borrowed from a friend, and it was a super quick read. And yeah, I basically didn't know this existed until she told me that she'd got it, and she was like, do you want to borrow it and read it? And I was like, yes please, because I am such a musical theatre girly. I love anything musical theatre. And I was saying when we were talking about Waitress, and I was like, I really wish I'd got to see it because I didn't get to see it when it was in the UK. And she basically said that she had this book, which is Doctor's Orders by Lucy Jones and David Hunter. And basically this was all the little notes. So every night when they did a show, David like drew a note or wrote something on a note to go to Lucy, which he'd hand to her on stage. And yeah, it was so good. Honestly, I was laughing, I was near enough crying, like so many emotions from this book. And all it was like 100 pages of illustrations, but I just loved it. It was so good, and it just made me feel so warm and fuzzy. And I was so happy. I loved reading that book, and yeah, it was really, really, really good. I didn't give it a rating just because I didn't feel like I could, because I didn't really know what to rate it. Would have been 5 stars though, if I had to, but yeah, it was really good. Now we are down to the final 3 books that I read this month, and the next book that I read was part of an online book club that someone called Nikki created. I'm fairly certain it's Nikki. I will try and find out what it is and put it down below, but yes, it is The Summer of Broken Rules. I don't know why I read that as 4 backwards. I guess because that looks like, yeah. Anyway, of Broken Rules. And I had seen such mixed reviews about this book. It's YA. It is really, really, really good. So basically, there's these 2 sisters. One of them dies. We don't get a lot at the beginning about how she died or what happened. We just kind of know it was a car accident, and that's kind of it. And her sister's going back with her parents for her cousin's wedding, and it's at the vineyard that they always went to when they were growing up. And they stay in the exact same house, and it's in this room, and it's basically a lot of her grief is in this book. Like, you learn so much about what she's going through, and she's really struggling. So she meets this guy, and he's one of the best men, and they get to know each other. They kind of start a bit of an alliance because there's this big massive game that goes on over summer, and it's basically like water, like everyone has water guns, and it's like an assassination game. Like, they just have to get everyone out, and the winner is the last person that obviously doesn't get shot with the water gun. And I loved how that game was so central to this book. And honestly, every way that the vineyard game was described, I wanted to be there. I really wanted to get myself into this book because it sounded so fun. Anyway, Meredith, who's the girl whose sister died and like the main girl, she kind of falls for this guy, and they kind of like get together, and yeah, they just kind of partner up and work together, and everyone thinks they're like properly together, but they're not. But like, I don't know. It was really good. It was really, really, really good. I wish something more had happened. I wish there was something else at the end. Gave this 3.75 stars, and yeah, I would recommend this, to be honest. I'd say maybe 4 stars instead of 3.75, but yeah, it was really, really, really good. I would recommend it. But yeah, she kind of betrays her friends though for this guy, and I'm kind of like, do we want that? No, but it's okay. But yeah, I would really recommend this book. Like I said though, people do have very mixed feelings on it. I've seen either really, really, really positive or not so positive. But I liked the whole thing that was going on. I liked the game. I liked just the way that the whole scenery was described. I liked what was going on. Yeah, I did really enjoy this. So I think it was a good book club pick, to be honest. Anyway, the next book that I read was Tales from the Calf Before the Coffee Gets Cold. So this is the second book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. Again, I had started this one a while ago, and all of a sudden I just had an urge to read it. I think after I finished this, there wasn't a lot that I wanted to read. So I was like, do you know what? Let's just read this one. And I got through it super quickly, really enjoyed it. Yeah, I love this series because I feel like it teaches you something from every little story. I feel like there's something to take away from it, and I really like that. Sometimes it's a bit hard to read though, in terms of like, it's just a bit descriptive. So sometimes I'm kind of like, oh, this is long. So it takes me a while to actually start them and get used to them. I feel like I really need to be in the mood. But saying that, this was really good and I gave it 3.25 stars. So the last book that I read this month was The Fixer Upper by Phoebe Macleod. So basically there's this girl called Alex who is an estate agent, and she moves into a flat with her friend. Her friend, this is the first time she's never lived without her parents, like this is her first time moving out, and she gets in a relationship with a guy that moved opposite with one of his friends. And basically Alex's boyfriend goes to an artist course like halfway across America, and or maybe into America, and she ends up making friends with Callum, who is the guy that moved in with her best friend's now boyfriend. And he's kind of a bit of a recluse, so she's kind of like getting to know him, and it takes quite a while, and they begin to be quite good friends. It was a really good book. I think it literally took me like a day when I actually started reading it. I did really enjoy it. I gave it, I think, 3 stars. I would recommend though. It was really, really, really nice. A super kind of fast-paced romance, and just kind of, it was, nothing drastic happened. It was just quite chill, and I liked that because sometimes I just need something that's very much a palate cleanser, like nothing adult, just like a basic, just quick read, like cutesy little romance, and I think that was it. So yeah, I did really enjoy that one. But that is all the 9 books that I read in May. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again soon for a brand new video. Bye!